What if every financial struggle you have faced was not punishment, but preparation for this moment of receiving? What if every bill that seemed impossible to pay, every debt that felt crushing, every moment you counted pennies, wondering how you would make it through another day, was actually building something sacred inside you? What if your money blocks are not permanent fixtures, but temporary barriers that can dissolve tonight while you sleep? You are here because something deeper than your conscious mind guided you to this teaching. You are here because Florence Scovel Shinn, who understood the invisible laws of prosperity nearly 100 years ago, has a message for you tonight. You are here because your breakthrough with money is not someday in the future, but right now in this moment, as you allow these words to enter the deepest chambers of your heart. Tonight, while you rest, your subconscious mind will absorb every word I speak. Your body will relax completely, and your spirit will receive what it has been waiting for. You do not need to take notes. You do not need to remember. You do not need to try. You can close your eyes now, and everything that needs to happen will happen while you rest. Your money blocks are already beginning to dissolve, and you can feel it, or you will feel it, and there is no difference between these two possibilities. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was 59 years old when the prayer I will share with you tonight changed everything about her relationship with money. Elizabeth lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Portland, Oregon, with her daughter Sarah, who was 23 and struggling to find work after college. For 23 years, Elizabeth had fought with money, and money had seemed to fight back with equal force. It was 6:47 in the morning on a Monday in March when Elizabeth first heard these words about dissolving money blocks. The apartment felt cold because she had kept the heat low to save on the electric bill. She could smell the instant coffee brewing in the kitchen and hear the sounds of her neighbors getting ready for work through the thin walls. Her stomach felt tight with the familiar anxiety that came every morning when she thought about the bills stacked on the small table by the window. Elizabeth worked 2 jobs cleaning office buildings at night and stocking shelves at a grocery store during the day. Her hands were rough and dry from the cleaning chemicals, and her back ached constantly from bending and lifting. She made $1,200 each month, and after rent, utilities, groceries, and her daughter's small student loan payment, there was never anything left. Sometimes, there was not even enough, and she would lie awake at night wondering which bill she could delay another week. Sarah had been looking for work for 8 months since graduating with a degree in marketing, but every application seemed to disappear into silence. Elizabeth watched her daughter grow more discouraged each day and felt the weight of not being able to help in any meaningful way. They lived on pasta and rice and generic brands, and Elizabeth had not bought herself new clothes in 3 years. Her winter coat had a small tear near the left pocket that she had mended with thread that did not quite match. The credit card debt had grown to $8,400 over the years, from car repairs and medical bills and Christmas gifts for Sarah and emergencies that kept appearing like unexpected guests. The monthly minimum payment was $237, and Elizabeth knew that at this rate she would be paying until she was 75 years old. She had applied for better jobs, but always heard that she lacked the required education or experience or computer skills that seemed to change faster than she could learn them. That Monday morning, Elizabeth was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had grown cold while she stared at 3 envelopes she could not bring herself to open. One was from the credit card company, which she knew contained a late fee notice. One was from the electric company, which might be a shut-off warning. One was from her daughter's student loan servicer requesting payment information. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the first envelope and then stopped. Something made her pick up her phone instead and search for prayers about money troubles. She did not consider herself particularly religious, but she had grown up attending a small Methodist church with her grandmother, who always said that God wanted people to prosper. Elizabeth had stopped believing this was true for her, but in that moment of desperation, she was willing to try anything, even prayer, even hope, even the possibility that there might be invisible help available. The video she found was about Florence Scovel Shinn and removing money blocks through prayer during sleep. Elizabeth had never heard of Florence Scovel Shinn, but something about the gentle voice in the video made her feel safe in a way she had not felt in years. The voice explained that money blocks were not real barriers, but old patterns of thought that could be dissolved, and that the subconscious mind was most receptive during sleep when the critical faculties were quiet. Elizabeth listened to the prayer that night, lying in her bed with the covers pulled up to her chin, feeling both hopeful and foolish at the same time. The prayer was simple but powerful, asking for the removal of all obstacles to financial flow and declaring that she was naturally supplied by an infinite source. She fell asleep repeating the words and dreamed of clear flowing water that washed away old debris and left everything clean and new. The next morning, Elizabeth woke with an unusual feeling of lightness, as if something heavy had been lifted from her chest during the night. She made her coffee and sat at the table where the 3 unopened envelopes still waited, but instead of anxiety, she felt a strange, calm curiosity about what they might contain. When she opened the first envelope, she found not a late fee notice, but a letter explaining that her credit card company was offering a hardship program that could reduce her payments by 60%. The second envelope contained a notice from the electric company about a low-income assistance program that could reduce her monthly bill by $40. The third envelope was from the student loan servicer, offering a deferment option that would pause payments for 6 months. Elizabeth stared at the letters, feeling as if the universe had reorganized itself overnight to support her rather than challenge her. She called each company that day and enrolled in every program they offered. But this was only the beginning of what would unfold over the next 48 hours. That Tuesday afternoon, while Elizabeth was stocking shelves at the grocery store, her manager approached her with an unusual request. A woman had called asking specifically for Elizabeth by name, saying she had heard wonderful things about her work ethic and attention to detail. The woman wanted to hire Elizabeth to clean her home office twice a week for $150 each visit. Elizabeth had never advertised cleaning services and could not imagine how this woman had heard about her, but she accepted the offer immediately. The woman's name was Mrs. Patterson, and when Elizabeth arrived at the beautiful home in the hills overlooking Portland, she was greeted with kindness and respect that felt foreign after years of being invisible in her various jobs. Mrs. Patterson explained that she ran a consulting business from her home office and valued having someone trustworthy to maintain the space. During that first cleaning appointment, Mrs. Patterson mentioned that she was looking for someone to help with basic administrative tasks like filing and organizing client information. She offered Elizabeth another $100 per week for 4 hours of simple office work that could be done on weekends. Elizabeth accepted with tears in her eyes, realizing that these 2 opportunities would increase her monthly income by $1,400. On Wednesday evening, 46 hours after Elizabeth had first listened to the prayer about removing money blocks, her daughter Sarah received a phone call from a marketing firm that had reviewed her resume months earlier. They had an immediate opening for an entry-level position with benefits and a starting salary of $38,000 per year. Sarah would begin work the following Monday and could finally contribute to the household expenses while building her career. Elizabeth sat on her bed that Wednesday night, holding the business card Mrs. Patterson had given her and feeling overwhelmed by the swift transformation of her circumstances. In less than 2 days, her financial picture had completely changed from struggle and scarcity to stability and possibility. She realized that nothing external had actually changed until she had changed something internal through the simple act of asking for help and believing that help was available. The prayer had worked not by bringing money from nowhere, but by opening her awareness to opportunities that had always been present but invisible to her. The woman who called about cleaning services had gotten Elizabeth's name from a co-worker at the grocery store who had mentioned her dedication and reliability. The administrative work opportunity arose because Mrs. Patterson needed exactly the kind of steady, responsible person Elizabeth had proven herself to be. Sarah's job offer came through networking from a classmate whose mother worked at the marketing firm. What Elizabeth understood now was that her money blocks had not been about her worthiness or capability, but about her ability to see and receive what was already available. The prayer had dissolved the internal barriers that had kept her focused on lack instead of possibility, on problems instead of solutions, on fear instead of faith. She began listening to the prayer every night, and within 3 months had paid off half her credit card debt and moved with Sarah to a larger apartment with central heating and a washing machine. Elizabeth learned that prosperity was not about getting something she did not have, but about removing the obstacles to receiving what was always trying to reach her. She learned that money blocks were like clouds that temporarily obscured the sun without changing the fact that the sun was always shining. She learned that her financial transformation had begun not when circumstances changed, but when she changed her relationship to the invisible source of all supply. If this teaching resonates with you, and if you feel you were guided here, then touch the subscribe button now. And it is not for me, but it is so that you receive each new teaching from Florence Scovel Shinn at the exact moment your soul needs it. These teachings are being shared with thousands of people around the world who are ready to dissolve their money blocks and step into the prosperity that is their birthright. When you subscribe, you become part of a field of abundant thinking that supports everyone's breakthrough. And in the comments, write only 3 words, which are, "I am receiving now." And this is not an affirmation but a decree. And when you write these words, you activate collective witness, and thousands of souls write these same words, and the field strengthens for everyone. Your 3 words join with thousands of other declarations, creating an invisible network of prosperity consciousness that spans the globe. This is how Florence Scovel Shinn understood the power of spoken word when witnessed by others. If you choose not to do this right now, that is perfectly fine and your path is your own, but know that this is the moment of greatest power, so do it if you feel aligned. There is no pressure and no obligation, but there is opportunity and invitation and recognition that you are here not by accident, but by divine appointment. Your money blocks are already beginning to dissolve, whether you subscribe or not, but your participation strengthens the field for yourself and others. Now, you can relax completely, and you do not need to do anything more. Everything I will share over the next 8 hours enters you while you rest and work, while you sleep, and transforms while you dream. Your subconscious is awake and alert even when your conscious mind drifts away, and it absorbs every word, every principle, every prayer that I will speak. If you fall asleep in the middle, that is perfect, because when you wake, the seed will already be planted and growing in the fertile soil of your deeper mind. Your body knows how to heal itself while you sleep, and your mind knows how to reorganize itself around new patterns of prosperity while you rest. You do not need to try or effort or force any of this to happen. You need only to allow and receive and trust that invisible forces are already working on your behalf. The prayer for removing money blocks is already working, and you can feel it beginning to dissolve old patterns that no longer serve your highest good. Florence Scovel Shinn was born in 1860 in Camden, New Jersey, during a time when women had few financial options and even fewer spiritual teachers spoke about money as a sacred subject. She lived through the Civil War as a child, the Industrial Revolution as a young woman, and the dawn of the 20th century as a mature spiritual teacher who would revolutionize how people understood the relationship between consciousness and material supply. Her father was a lawyer, and her mother came from a family of educators, which gave Florence advantages that she would later use to help others regardless of their background or circumstances. Florence moved to New York City in the 1880s to study art at the Philadelphia Academy of Fine Arts, and later became a successful illustrator, creating artwork for magazines and children's books. She married Everett Shinn, who would become famous as one of the American Impressionist painters. But Florence discovered that her true calling was not creating visual art, but understanding and teaching the invisible laws that governed human experience. She began studying metaphysical principles in the early 1900s when such ideas were considered radical, especially for a woman. What set Florence apart from other spiritual teachers of her time was her practical approach to prosperity consciousness. She did not speak about money as something separate from spiritual life, but as one of the natural expressions of divine abundance. She taught that poverty was not noble and wealth was not evil, but that both were reflections of consciousness, and that consciousness could be changed through understanding spiritual law. Her most famous teaching was that every word spoken with feeling and conviction was a decree that set invisible forces in motion. Florence spent 30 years developing and testing her principles before writing her first book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, in 1925. By then, she had helped hundreds of people transform their financial circumstances through what she called right thinking and spoken word. She had discovered that the subconscious mind did not distinguish between what was imagined vividly and what was experienced physically, and that this principle could be used to dissolve limiting patterns around money. The central principle that Florence Scovel Shinn taught about prosperity was deceptively simple. You are naturally supplied by an infinite source, and any experience of lack is the result of blocking the natural flow of good. She would say to her students, "Your supply is not dependent on persons or conditions, but on your recognition of divine abundance as the source of all good things." This was revolutionary thinking in an era when most people believed that hard work and sacrifice were the only legitimate paths to financial security. Florence discovered this principle through her own experience of financial transformation when her husband left her suddenly in 1919, taking most of their savings and leaving her alone in New York City with no reliable income. Instead of accepting defeat, she applied the metaphysical principles she had been studying, and within 6 months had built a thriving practice as a spiritual counselor and teacher. She often told this story to demonstrate that external circumstances were not as powerful as internal consciousness. Kenneth was 63 years old and had been a successful businessman in Chicago until the stock market crash of 1929 wiped out everything he had built over 30 years. His construction company went bankrupt, his savings disappeared, and his wife left him saying she could not bear to watch him fail. Kenneth found himself living in a boarding house with $17 to his name and no prospects for rebuilding at his age. He had worked 16-hour days for decades, believing that effort and determination were enough to guarantee success. Kenneth was a practical man who had never given much thought to spiritual matters, but desperation opened his mind to possibilities he would have dismissed in better times. A friend gave him a copy of Florence Scovel Shinn's lectures and suggested he attend one of her sessions in New York. Kenneth took the train from Chicago with his last $5 and sat in the back row of a hotel conference room listening to a woman speak about prosperity as a spiritual birthright. Florence looked directly at Kenneth during her talk that evening and said, "Sir, you appear to be carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, but the world was never yours to carry, and your supply was never dependent on your efforts alone." She explained that his financial collapse was not punishment for failure, but an opportunity to discover a more sustainable source of security. She taught that when human effort reached its limit, divine supply was ready to flow if consciousness was prepared to receive it. After the lecture, Kenneth approached Florence and told her his story with tears in his eyes, saying he had lost everything and did not know how to start over at his age. Florence listened with compassion and then gave him a specific practice to follow for 30 days. She instructed him to declare every morning upon waking and every evening before sleep these exact words: "I am supplied by infinite abundance, and every door that needs to open will open at the perfect time." She told him to speak these words with feeling as if they were already true, rather than something he hoped would become true. Kenneth was skeptical, but had nothing left to lose, so he committed to following Florence's instructions precisely. He rented a small room in a boarding house in Manhattan and began each day with the declaration of abundant supply, even though his circumstances showed no immediate evidence of change. For the first 2 weeks, nothing visible shifted, but Kenneth noticed that his anxiety began to lessen and his sleep improved. He found himself walking with more confidence and speaking to people with less desperation in his voice. During the 3rd week, Kenneth was having coffee in a diner near his boarding house when he overheard a conversation between 2 men at the next table. They were discussing their need for someone with construction experience to oversee a building project in Queens, but they were having trouble finding someone they could trust with both the technical knowledge and the business skills required. Kenneth listened for several minutes before introducing himself and explaining his background in construction management. The 2 men, whose names were Mr. Davidson and Mr. Goldberg, had been looking for exactly Kenneth's combination of experience for 3 months. They offered him a position as project supervisor with a salary of $60 per week, plus a percentage of any savings he could achieve through efficient management. Kenneth accepted immediately, and discovered that his years of experience combined with his new understanding of abundant thinking made him exceptionally effective in this role. Within 6 weeks, Kenneth had identified several ways to reduce costs while improving quality, which earned him bonus payments of $230 on top of his regular salary. More importantly, the project attracted attention from other developers who began requesting Kenneth's services for their own construction projects. By the end of 3 months, Kenneth was earning more than he had made before his business failed and had multiple opportunities to choose from. Kenneth realized that his financial collapse had been necessary to break his attachment to security based on personal effort alone. Through following Florence's instructions, he had discovered that when he aligned his consciousness with the principle of infinite supply opportunities, appeared that his striving mind could never have created. He had learned to work with divine intelligence rather than against it, and found that success flowed more easily when he trusted the process rather than trying to control every outcome. The transformation was not just financial, but mental and emotional as well. Kenneth's health improved, his relationships deepened, and his natural optimism returned stronger than before. He continued using Florence's prosperity principles for the rest of his life, and eventually built a construction company that was more successful than his original business had ever been. He often said that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to him because it forced him to discover resources he never knew he possessed. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this kind of transformation was available to anyone willing to shift from human thinking to divine thinking about money and supply. She explained that the invisible realm was organized by different laws than the visible realm, and that understanding these laws was more important than understanding economics or business strategy. She would say to her students, the supply you need already exists in the invisible, but you must prepare your consciousness to receive it. The principle Florence discovered was that consciousness creates experience, and that changing consciousness changes circumstances, but this change happens first in the invisible realm before manifesting in the physical world. She taught that when someone truly embodied the feeling of being supplied, the universe rearranged itself to match that inner state. This was not positive thinking or wishful thinking, but recognition of spiritual law working through individual consciousness. While you sleep tonight, this principle is already working in your life, reorganizing your financial reality according to the new pattern being established in your deeper mind. Your subconscious does not sleep, and it is now absorbing the truth that you are naturally supplied by infinite abundance. You do not need to figure out how this will happen or when it will happen, because the invisible intelligence that governs all supply knows the perfect timing and method for your particular circumstances. The prayer for removing money blocks works because it dissolves the false beliefs that have been blocking the natural flow of good into your life. These blocks are not real barriers, but patterns of thought that can be changed, and when they change, everything else changes as well. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that prosperity was not about getting something you do not have, but about removing the obstacles to receiving what is always trying to reach you from the infinite source of all good. Continue resting now and allow these principles to work in the deep chambers of your consciousness where transformation begins. Your money blocks are dissolving with each breath and each moment of rest, and when you wake, the path forward will be clearer than it has ever been. The teachings of Florence Scovel Shinn are timeless because they are based on spiritual law rather than economic conditions, and spiritual law never changes regardless of what appears to be happening in the external world. The nature of the spoken word, as understood by Florence Scovel Shinn, goes far beyond ordinary communication into the realm of creative force and vibrational command. She taught that every word spoken with feeling and conviction sends out invisible waves that reorganize the fabric of reality according to the pattern contained within that word. This understanding comes from the most ancient spiritual traditions, which recognize that sound itself was the creative principle through which the invisible becomes visible and the possible becomes actual. When Florence spoke about words as decrees, she was referring to something much more powerful than affirmations or positive thinking. A decree is a command issued with the authority of one who knows their divine nature and their connection to the infinite source of all good. She would tell her students that when you speak a word of prosperity with complete conviction, you are not begging the universe for something you lack, but commanding what already belongs to you to manifest in form. The Bible begins with the statement, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," which Florence interpreted as the recognition that creative power flows through spoken word when it is aligned with divine truth. She taught that every human being possessed this same creative authority because they were made in the image and likeness of the divine creative principle. Most people, she observed, used this power unconsciously, speaking words of limitation and lack, and then wondering why their lives reflected those patterns. Florence discovered that the power of the word was amplified when spoken during states of expanded consciousness, such as prayer meditation, or the moments before sleep when the conscious mind relaxes its control and allows deeper truth to emerge. She found that words spoken just before sleep were particularly potent because they continued working in the subconscious mind throughout the night, creating new neural pathways and dissolving old patterns of limitation. Sound itself is vibration, and vibration is the force that shapes matter according to invisible patterns that exist in the realm of pure potential. When you speak words of prosperity with genuine feeling, you create a vibrational field that attracts circumstances, people, and opportunities that match that frequency. This is not metaphor, but physics, operating at levels more subtle than current science can measure, but nonetheless real and reliable in their operation. Florence taught that most people's financial struggles came not from lack of opportunity or ability, but from unconscious patterns of speaking that created energetic blocks around money. She observed that people would speak casually about being broke or poor or unable to afford things without realizing that these words were functioning as commands to the subconscious mind to maintain those conditions. She called this unconscious negative programming and taught specific techniques for reversing it. Sandra was 55 years old and worked as a single mother raising 3 children in Denver, Colorado after her husband died suddenly in a car accident 4 years earlier. Sandra held 3 part-time jobs cleaning houses during the day, stocking shelves at a department store in the evenings, and providing childcare for neighbors on weekends. Despite working nearly 80 hours each week, she barely earned enough to cover rent, groceries, and basic necessities for her family. Sandra's days began at 4:30 in the morning when she would drink instant coffee while preparing simple breakfast for her children before they went to school. Her youngest daughter, Amy, was 8 years old, and her twin sons, Michael and David, were 12 years old, and all 3 children had learned not to ask for things they wanted because they understood money was tight. Sandra felt guilty that she could not provide the childhood experiences she wanted to give them, but she was doing everything she knew how to do. The financial pressure was constant and overwhelming. Sandra made approximately $1,500 each month, but rent alone consumed $850, leaving very little for food, clothing, utilities, and the countless unexpected expenses that arose with 3 growing children. She had applied for better-paying jobs, but lacked the college education or specialized skills that employers seemed to require. At her age, she felt it was too late to go back to school even if she could afford it. Sandra often lay awake at night after her children were asleep, feeling exhausted and worried about the future. She would catch herself saying things like, "We can't afford that," or "money doesn't grow on trees," or "we have to make do with what we have." These phrases had become automatic responses to her children's requests and her own desires, and she had no idea that they were functioning as unconscious commands to maintain scarcity. One evening, while Sandra was cleaning the office of a financial planning company, she noticed a book on the receptionist's desk about Florence Scovel Shinn and the power of spoken word. Sandra had never heard of Florence Scovel Shinn, but the title caught her attention because it mentioned prosperity consciousness and transforming financial circumstances through changing thought patterns. She borrowed the book with permission and read it during her break times over the next week. The book explained that words were not just communication, but creative forces that shaped experience, and that most people unknowingly used this power to perpetuate the very conditions they wanted to change. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the subconscious mind accepted as true whatever was spoken with feeling, and then worked to manifest circumstances that matched those words. Sandra realized with growing excitement that she had been unconsciously programming herself for continued financial struggle. Florence's teaching focused on a simple but powerful technique, replacing words of limitation with words of abundance spoken with complete conviction as if they were already true rather than something hoped for in the future. Sandra learned that instead of saying we can't afford that, she could say we are abundantly supplied and everything we need comes to us easily. Instead of we have to make do, she could say we have everything we need and more. Sandra decided to test this principle by committing to 30 days of conscious speaking using only words that affirmed abundance and supply. Every morning before her children woke up, she would sit in her kitchen and speak these specific words with as much feeling as she could generate. I am supplied now by infinite abundance, and every door that needs to open opens at the perfect time. She would repeat this declaration 5 times and then visualize her children happy and provided for in every way. Throughout each day, Sandra became aware of her automatic responses to financial concerns and consciously chose different words. When her son David mentioned wanting new sneakers for basketball, Sandra said, "Yes, honey, we will find the perfect sneakers for you instead of her usual. We'll see if we can afford it." When unexpected expenses arose, Sandra would say the money for this is already provided instead of where am I going to find the money for this. The first week of this practice felt awkward and artificial because Sandra did not yet believe the words she was speaking, but Florence had taught that belief followed feeling and feeling followed repetition. Sandra noticed that even though her circumstances had not changed, her anxiety began to decrease and her energy improved. Her children commented that she seemed happier and less stressed, which encouraged Sandra to continue the practice even when doubt arose. During the second week, Sandra's supervisor at the department store mentioned that corporate headquarters was looking for part-time employees who might be interested in additional responsibilities. The position involved training new employees and would increase Sandra's hourly wage from $9 to $14 per hour for up to 20 hours each week. Sandra had never been offered advancement opportunities before and accepted immediately. In the third week, Sandra received a phone call from Mrs. Wellington, one of her house cleaning clients, who mentioned that her sister was looking for someone trustworthy to manage the rental properties she owned across the city. The work involved collecting rent, conducting property inspections, and coordinating maintenance issues for a fee of $200 per property per month. Mrs. Wellington recommended Sandra highly, and her sister offered Sandra management of 4 properties starting immediately. By the 4th week, Sandra's monthly income had increased from $1,500 to $2,800, and she found herself with opportunities she could never have imagined just 1 month earlier. More importantly, her children began to relax and smile more as they sensed the shift in their mother's energy and confidence. Sandra realized that her words had been creating her reality all along, but now she was using this power consciously to create the life she wanted. Sandra continued using Florence Scovel Shinn's word principles and within 6 months had saved enough money to move her family to a larger apartment in a better neighborhood with a good school district. Her children joined sports teams and music programs they had always wanted to try, and Sandra began taking evening classes in business management with the goal of eventually starting her own property management company. The transformation began not with changed circumstances, but with changed words and the energy behind those words. Sandra learned that prosperity consciousness was not about positive thinking, but about aligning her spoken word with spiritual truth and allowing that alignment to create new patterns of experience. She discovered that the universe responded not to her needs or her problems, but to her declarations and her faith in the invisible source of all supply. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this principle worked for everyone, regardless of their background, education, or current circumstances, because it was based on spiritual law rather than human effort. She explained that when words of abundance were spoken with genuine feeling, they created what she called word tracks in consciousness that guided the subconscious mind toward opportunities and solutions that matched those words. The power of the decree spoken before sleep is particularly potent because during sleep the conscious mind, with all its doubts and limitations, relaxes its control and allows the subconscious mind to reorganize itself around new patterns. When you fall asleep tonight, after hearing words of prosperity, those words continue working in your deeper mind, creating new neural pathways and dissolving old patterns of financial limitation. You do not need to believe these words immediately or completely, but you need only to allow them to enter your consciousness and do their work. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is imagined vividly and what is experienced physically. So when prosperity consciousness is established in the subconscious through repeated declaration, it begins to manifest corresponding experiences in the external world. Your money blocks are dissolving now as you rest and receive these teachings, because blocks are nothing more than old word patterns that no longer serve your highest good. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that financial transformation began with transformed speaking, and transformed speaking began with understanding the creative power of the word. Continue allowing these principles to work in your consciousness as we explore even deeper layers of prosperity consciousness in the hours ahead. The principle of identity preceding manifestation represents the deepest level of Florence Scovel Shinn's prosperity teachings and reveals why so many people struggle financially despite working hard and wanting to improve their circumstances. She discovered that every person carries within their consciousness a fundamental sense of identity around money and worthiness that functions like an invisible thermostat, regulating how much good they can receive and maintain in their lives. Florence observed that people do not attract what they want, but what they are, and that what they are is determined not by their circumstances, but by their deepest beliefs about their own nature and their relationship to the source of all supply. She taught that most financial problems stemmed from an identity based on limitation rather than abundance, and that changing this identity was more important than changing external strategies or working harder to earn more money. This understanding came from Florence's recognition that consciousness creates experience rather than responding to it, and that at the level of consciousness, identity is the most powerful creative force. When someone truly embodied the identity of being naturally supplied and worthy of abundance, their external circumstances would inevitably shift to match that inner state. This shift happened not through effort or manipulation, but through the natural operation of spiritual law. The identity that most people carry around money was formed during childhood through observing their parents' relationship with money and absorbing the spoken and unspoken messages about worth and deserving that were present in their family environment. Florence noticed that even people who achieved financial success often struggled to maintain it if their core identity remained rooted in scarcity or unworthiness, because their subconscious mind would sabotage their success to maintain consistency with their sense of self. Florence taught that true prosperity consciousness required what she called a divine identity based on recognition of one's spiritual nature rather than physical circumstances. She would tell her students, "You are not a human being having a spiritual experience, but a spiritual being having a human experience. And your spiritual nature is naturally abundant because it is connected to the infinite source of all good." This was not philosophy, but practical instruction for establishing unshakable financial confidence. The process of shifting from human identity to divine identity around money required what Florence called treating yourself as the person you already are in the divine plan, rather than the person you appear to be based on current circumstances. This meant speaking to yourself and about yourself as someone who was naturally supplied and supported, rather than someone who had to struggle or worry about provision. Arthur was 67 years old and had worked as an accountant for the same company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 43 years, when the market crash of 2008 wiped out most of his retirement savings overnight. Arthur had always been conservative with money living below his means and saving diligently for retirement, but his carefully planned financial security disappeared when his investment portfolio lost 67% of its value in 18 months. Arthur's identity had been built around being financially responsible and prepared for the future, so losing his retirement savings felt like losing himself. He had always been the person others came to for financial advice, and now he felt like a failure who could not even manage his own money properly. His wife Martha had died 3 years earlier, and Arthur was facing retirement alone with far less money than he had planned, and no way to recover his losses at his age. The fear was overwhelming and constant. Arthur would wake up at 4 a.m. with his heart racing as he calculated and recalculated how long his remaining savings would last at different rates of spending. He had moved to a smaller apartment to reduce expenses and stopped eating out or buying anything that was not absolutely necessary. Every purchase required careful consideration, and he found himself counting pennies in a way he had not done since his childhood during the Great Depression. Arthur's children lived in other states and had their own financial responsibilities, so he did not want to burden them with his situation. He applied for part-time jobs, but discovered that few employers wanted to hire someone his age, even for basic positions. Arthur began to see himself as old, useless, and financially irresponsible, despite having made what most experts would have considered sound investment decisions based on the information available at the time. One afternoon, while Arthur was sitting in the library reading financial magazines and trying to understand what had gone wrong with his investments, he overheard two women discussing a book about Florence Scovel Shinn and prosperity consciousness. One woman was telling the other how these teachings had helped her rebuild her finances after a difficult divorce by changing her identity from victim to victor and from poor to prosperous. Arthur was skeptical of anything that sounded like New Age thinking, but desperation made him curious enough to check out the book they had mentioned. As he read Florence's teachings about identity and manifestation, Arthur began to recognize that his financial loss had triggered a fundamental shift in how he saw himself, from competent and secure to incompetent and vulnerable. He realized that this identity shift was creating even more limitations than the actual loss of money. Florence taught that external circumstances were temporary, but identity was the permanent creative force that shaped all experience, and that when identity was aligned with spiritual truth, rather than physical appearances, miraculous changes could occur. Arthur read that he was not his bank account balance or his investment portfolio, but a spiritual being with access to infinite supply, and that his worthiness of provision was based on his divine nature rather than his financial performance. Arthur decided to experiment with what Florence called treating yourself as naturally supplied, even when appearances suggested otherwise. Instead of introducing himself as a retiree living on a fixed income, he began describing himself as someone who was abundantly provided for in all ways. Instead of worry and calculation, he practiced what Florence called confident expectation that his needs would be met from unexpected sources. This felt completely artificial at first, because Arthur's rational mind could see no evidence to support such confidence. But Florence had taught that identity preceded manifestation rather than following it. Arthur began each day by declaring, "I am abundantly supplied by infinite intelligence, and every door that needs to open opens at the perfect time." He spoke these words with as much conviction as he could muster while looking at himself in the bathroom mirror. Within 2 weeks, Arthur noticed that his chronic anxiety about money began to ease, even though his circumstances had not changed. His sleep improved, his appetite returned, and he found himself taking better care of his appearance and his apartment. People began commenting that he seemed more like his old self, and Arthur realized that changing his identity was changing his energy in ways that others could perceive. During the 3rd week, Arthur received a phone call from his former employer, asking if he would be willing to return as a part-time consultant to help train the new staff on the accounting systems he had developed over his decades with the company. They offered him $30 per hour for up to 20 hours per week, which would significantly ease his financial pressure while utilizing his expertise in a way that felt meaningful and valued. In the 4th week, Arthur was approached by a neighbor who had noticed his attention to detail and organizational skills while serving on the condominium board. The neighbor owned several small businesses and needed someone trustworthy to help with bookkeeping and financial planning. This opportunity offered flexible hours, good compensation, and the possibility of building a small consulting practice that could provide both income and purpose. By the end of 8 weeks, Arthur's monthly income had increased from his Social Security payments alone to nearly 3 times that amount through the consulting opportunities that had appeared. More importantly, his sense of identity had shifted from seeing himself as a victim of circumstances to recognizing himself as a person with valuable skills and natural resourcefulness who could create opportunities even in challenging situations. Arthur realized that his financial loss had been traumatic but not permanent, and that his worth as a person was not determined by the balance in his investment accounts. Through applying Florence's principles about divine identity, he had discovered inner resources that were more reliable than any external security, and had learned to trust that he would always be provided for regardless of changing circumstances. The transformation was not just financial, but mental and emotional as Arthur moved from fear and limitation to confidence and possibility. He continued working with Florence's identity principles and eventually built a small but thriving consulting practice that provided both adequate income and deep satisfaction. Arthur often said that losing his retirement savings had been devastating, but had ultimately led him to discover capabilities and opportunities he never would have found otherwise. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this kind of identity transformation was the foundation of all lasting prosperity, because when someone truly embodied the consciousness of being naturally supplied, their external world would reorganize itself to match that inner state. She explained that most people tried to change their circumstances first and then hoped their identity would follow. But spiritual law worked in the opposite direction, with identity creating circumstances rather than responding to them. The layers of identity around money that Florence taught included worthiness identity, which recognized deserving as a birthright rather than something that had to be earned through suffering or sacrifice. She taught abundance identity, which saw supply as unlimited rather than scarce, and required sharing and hoarding. She taught receiver identity, which understood that accepting good was a spiritual service rather than a selfish act, because it allowed divine intelligence to express itself through human experience. Florence explained that when these identity layers were established in consciousness, they created what she called an invisible magnet that attracted opportunities, people, and circumstances aligned with prosperity and abundance. This was not manipulation or trying to control external events, but alignment with spiritual law that operated consistently regardless of economic conditions or personal circumstances. While you sleep tonight, your identity is being transformed from human thinking to divine thinking about your relationship with money and supply. Your subconscious mind is releasing old patterns of unworthiness and limitation and establishing new patterns of confidence and abundance. You do not need to effort or force this transformation because it happens naturally when you allow spiritual truth to replace false beliefs about your nature and your connection to infinite supply. Continue resting and receiving as your true identity as a naturally abundant being emerges from beneath the layers of conditioning that have obscured it. Your money blocks are dissolving because they were never part of your real nature, but temporary patterns that are now being replaced by the truth of who you have always been. The teachings of Florence Scovel Shinn work because they align human consciousness with divine reality, and divine reality is abundant in all ways. The nature of resistance around money is one of the most complex aspects of prosperity consciousness, because financial resistance often masquerades as virtue, wisdom, or spiritual understanding when it is actually fear disguised as righteousness. Florence Scovel Shinn observed that many of her students had unconscious attachments to financial struggle that they believed made them more spiritual, humble, or worthy of divine favor than people who enjoyed material abundance. She discovered that the ego mind fights against financial good just as fiercely as it fights against any other form of expansion, because prosperity requires releasing old identities and stepping into larger versions of ourselves. Florence taught that resistance was not the enemy to be overcome through force, but a teacher pointing toward the specific beliefs and attachments that needed to be released in order for greater good to flow into experience. The most common forms of financial resistance that Florence encountered included spiritual pride around money, which convinced people that having less money made them more enlightened than people who had more money. She observed people who were secretly proud of their financial struggles because they believed their suffering proved their spiritual superiority over those who lived comfortably without apparent effort. Another form of resistance was fear of responsibility, which operated from the belief that having more money would require more work, more stress, more difficult decisions, and more complicated relationships with others. Many people unconsciously limited their financial good because they associated wealth with burdens they did not want to carry and problems they did not want to solve. Florence also identified family loyalty resistance, which kept people financially limited because they believed that having more money than their family members would create guilt separation or jealousy that would damage their relationships. This resistance operated from the false belief that there was not enough good for everyone, and that one person's prosperity necessarily meant another person's lack. The most subtle form of resistance Florence discovered was fear of spiritual corruption, which assumed that money would somehow damage their spiritual development or lead them away from their connection to divine truth. This resistance was often reinforced by religious teachings that glorified poverty and demonized wealth, without understanding that both poverty and wealth were neutral conditions that reflected consciousness rather than creating it. Florence taught that true surrender around money was not passive acceptance of limitation, but active alignment with divine intelligence about prosperity and abundance. She explained that surrendering financial resistance meant releasing the ego's need to control how good appeared and trusting that divine intelligence knew the perfect amount, timing, and form of supply for each person's highest development and greatest service. The process of surrendering financial resistance required what Florence called witnessing rather than fighting, because resistance that was observed with compassion would naturally dissolve, while resistance that was fought against would strengthen and persist. She taught her students to notice their resistance patterns with curiosity rather than judgment, and to ask what fear or false belief was creating the resistance. Donna was 58 years old and worked as a nurse at a hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, where she had built a reputation for exceptional patient care and clinical expertise over 32 years of service. Donna loved her work and felt called to nursing as a way of serving others, but she struggled financially despite her professional success because she had unconscious resistance to earning or receiving more money than was absolutely necessary for basic survival. Donna had grown up in a deeply religious family that taught her money was the root of all evil, and that spiritual people should not be concerned with material things. Her parents had been missionaries who lived on minimal donations and spoke often about the virtue of poverty and the spiritual dangers of wealth. Donna absorbed these teachings and carried them into her adult life without questioning whether they actually served her highest good or her ability to serve others. Despite being highly skilled and experienced, Donna had never negotiated for higher wages or pursued promotions that would increase her income because she believed that wanting more money was selfish and unspiritual. She lived in a small apartment, drove an old car that required frequent repairs, and often worried about unexpected expenses, but convinced herself that these struggles were evidence of her spiritual purity and dedication to serving others rather than herself. Donna's financial resistance became more apparent when the hospital where she worked offered her a position as head nurse with significantly higher salary and better benefits. Instead of feeling excited about the opportunity, Donna felt anxious and guilty about earning more money when other nurses would continue working for less. She began to doubt whether she deserved the position and worried that accepting it would make her greedy or materialistic. After several sleepless nights of internal conflict, Donna almost declined the promotion, but a colleague encouraged her to examine why she was afraid of financial advancement when she had clearly earned the opportunity through her skills and dedication. This conversation led Donna to recognize that her relationship with money was based on fear and false beliefs rather than spiritual truth or practical wisdom. Donna began studying Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings about prosperity consciousness and discovered that her financial resistance was not protecting her spirituality, but actually limiting her ability to serve others more effectively. Florence taught that money was simply energy that could be used for good or evil, depending on the consciousness of the person who wielded it, and that spiritual people had a responsibility to be prosperous so they could contribute more resources to worthy causes. As Donna read Florence's teachings, she began to identify the specific patterns of resistance that had been operating unconsciously in her relationship with money. The first resistance was spiritual pride, which made her feel superior to people who seemed to care about money and material things. Donna realized she had been judging others for wanting prosperity, while secretly feeling proud of her own financial limitations. The second resistance was fear of responsibility, which operated from her belief that having more money would require her to make difficult decisions about how to use it and would create pressure to maintain higher levels of success. Donna recognized that she had been avoiding financial growth partly because she was afraid of the increased responsibility that would come with greater resources. The third resistance was family loyalty, which kept Donna financially limited because her parents and siblings all struggled with money, and she worried that earning significantly more would create distance or resentment in her family relationships. Donna saw that she had been unconsciously limiting herself to maintain connection with her family of origin. The fourth resistance was fear of corruption, which assumed that having more money would somehow change her values or priorities in negative ways. Donna realized she had been afraid that prosperity would make her selfish, materialistic, or disconnected from her spiritual values, even though she had no evidence that money automatically created these changes in people. The fifth resistance was unworthiness, which operated from her deep belief that she did not deserve to have more than what was absolutely necessary for survival. Donna recognized that this belief had been reinforced by her religious upbringing, which taught her that good people should sacrifice for others rather than enjoying abundance themselves. The sixth resistance was fear of visibility, which kept her from pursuing opportunities that would increase her income because she was afraid of standing out or being noticed for her success. Donna realized she had been hiding her abilities and minimizing her achievements to avoid attracting attention or creating envy in others. The seventh resistance was fear of change, which operated from her attachment to familiar patterns, even when those patterns created limitation and stress. Donna saw that she had been avoiding financial growth, partly because she was comfortable with struggle and uncertain about how her life would change if money became easier and more abundant. As Donna identified each resistance pattern, she practiced what Florence called loving witness rather than self-criticism or force. She acknowledged each fear with compassion while asking what truth could replace the false belief that created the resistance. Donna discovered that witnessing her resistance with kindness allowed it to dissolve naturally without creating additional internal conflict. Donna decided to accept the promotion and use it as an opportunity to practice new consciousness around money and responsibility. She committed to managing her increased income with the same integrity and spiritual values she brought to her nursing practice, and discovered that having more money actually enhanced rather than diminished her ability to serve others through both her professional work and her personal giving. Within 6 months, Donna realized that her financial resistance had been protecting nothing valuable, but had been preventing her from expressing her full potential, both professionally and personally. Her increased income allowed her to reduce her work hours slightly, which improved her patient care and also gave her resources to support causes she cared about and family members who needed help. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this kind of resistance dissolution was essential for lasting prosperity, because as long as any part of consciousness was attached to limitation, that attachment would eventually sabotage external success. She explained that true financial freedom required internal freedom from all resistance to receiving the good that was constantly trying to flow into experience. The mantra that Florence taught for surrendering financial resistance was beautifully simple. I do not need to understand, but I simply receive. She explained that the ego mind wanted to understand and control how good appeared, but that divine intelligence operated beyond human comprehension and required trust rather than understanding. Surrender was not passivity, but active alignment with forces greater than personal will. Florence taught that resistance naturally dissolved during sleep when the conscious mind relaxed its control and allowed deeper wisdom to emerge. She instructed her students to speak words of surrender before sleep and to trust that their subconscious mind would continue the process of releasing resistance throughout the night. This process was gentle and natural rather than forced or effortful. While you rest tonight, your financial resistance is already dissolving, because resistance cannot exist in the presence of deep relaxation and spiritual truth. You do not need to fight against your resistance or judge yourself for having it, because resistance is simply old programming that served a purpose in the past but is no longer needed now. Your subconscious mind knows how to release what no longer serves while preserving what is truly valuable. Continue allowing this process of gentle dissolution as your consciousness aligns more completely with the truth of your spiritual nature and your natural connection to infinite supply. Your money blocks are not solid barriers, but temporary patterns that dissolve easily when exposed to spiritual light and understanding. The teachings of Florence Scovel Shinn work because they replace fear with love and resistance with flow. And these changes happen naturally when you allow, rather than force, the process of transformation. The language of signs and synchronicities in relation to financial manifestation was one of Florence Scovel Shinn's most profound discoveries, because she recognized that the universe communicated through symbolic rather than literal means, and that learning to read these communications was essential for maintaining faith during the period between decreeing and receiving. She taught that signs were not coincidences, but correspondences that revealed the invisible activity that was always preceding visible manifestation. Florence observed that most people missed the signs that indicated their financial breakthrough was approaching because they were looking for dramatic external changes, while the universe communicated through subtle shifts in patterns, energy, and unexpected small events that seemed insignificant to the logical mind, but were actually powerful indicators of transformation in progress. She discovered that signs appeared in 3 distinct levels that she called the micro, the medium, and the macro, with each level representing a different stage in the manifestation process. The micro signs were internal and energetic shifts that indicated consciousness was changing. The medium signs were small external events that suggested new patterns were beginning to form. The macro signs were obvious external changes that confirmed the manifestation was completing. Florence taught that recognizing and acknowledging signs was crucial because it strengthened faith and accelerated manifestation, while missing or dismissing signs created doubt that could slow or block the process. She instructed her students to pay attention to unexpected money that appeared even in small amounts, unusual opportunities that presented themselves, and shifts in how other people responded to them as indicators that their financial consciousness was transforming. The key to reading signs correctly, Florence discovered, was understanding that the universe spoke in symbols and metaphors rather than literal communications, and that the meaning of any sign was determined by the consciousness of the person receiving it rather than by external interpretation. She taught that when someone was truly aligned with prosperity consciousness, they would naturally recognize the signs that confirmed their alignment. Florence also warned against what she called sign-seeking, which was trying to force the universe to provide evidence rather than maintaining faith based on spiritual truth. She taught that signs appeared naturally when consciousness was properly aligned, but that demanding signs actually indicated doubt rather than faith and could interfere with the natural flow of manifestation. The progression of signs that Florence documented followed a predictable pattern that began with internal shifts such as increased optimism, reduced anxiety about money, and greater sense of confidence about the future. These internal changes would then be followed by small external confirmations, such as unexpected refunds, found money, or gifts from others. Finally, major opportunities and actual financial increases would appear as the manifestation process completed. Frank was 61 years old and had worked as a high school mathematics teacher in Cleveland, Ohio, for 37 years, when budget cuts eliminated his position just 2 years before he had planned to retire. Frank had always been frugal and responsible with money, but his pension would be reduced significantly if he retired early, and his health insurance would end, requiring him to find expensive coverage on his own until he became eligible for Medicare. Frank loved teaching and had never imagined having to find new employment at his age, but the school district offered no alternatives, and other teaching positions were scarce due to widespread budget reductions in education. Frank felt overwhelmed by the prospect of job searching in a competitive market where his age might be seen as a disadvantage despite his extensive experience and excellent teaching record. The financial pressure was immediate and concerning. Frank's mortgage had 11 years remaining, and his monthly payments were $643, which, along with utilities, groceries, and other basic expenses, required more income than his reduced pension would provide. Frank calculated that he needed to find work that paid at least $25,000 per year to maintain his current lifestyle until his full retirement age. Frank had heard about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings from his wife Margaret, who had been studying metaphysical principles since their daughter Jennifer introduced them to these ideas several years earlier. Frank had been skeptical of anything that seemed unscientific, but desperation made him willing to explore possibilities he might have dismissed under other circumstances. Margaret encouraged Frank to try Florence's approach of decreeing his perfect right employment while paying attention to signs that would indicate his breakthrough was approaching. Frank began each morning by declaring, "I am guided to my perfect right employment, where I can use my skills in service while receiving abundant compensation." He spoke these words with as much conviction as he could generate, while feeling doubtful about their effectiveness. During the first week, Frank noticed what Florence would have called micro-signs, indicating that his consciousness was beginning to shift. His chronic worry about the future began to lessen, and he found himself waking up with more energy and optimism than he had felt since learning about the budget cuts. Frank slept better, and his appetite improved, suggesting that his nervous system was relaxing, despite his uncertain circumstances. Frank also noticed that his attitude toward job searching was changing from desperate anxiety to curious exploration. Instead of dreading the process of writing applications and attending interviews, Frank began to feel interested in discovering what opportunities might be available that he had never considered before. This internal shift was subtle, but significant as an indicator that his consciousness was aligning with possibility rather than limitation. In the second week, Frank began to experience what Florence called medium signs that suggested new patterns were forming in his external environment. While Frank was having coffee at a local cafe, he overheard two women discussing their need for someone to tutor their high school children in advanced mathematics. Frank introduced himself and learned that both women were willing to pay $30 per hour for quality tutoring services. Frank also received an unexpected refund check for $97 from his auto insurance company for an overpayment he had not realized he had made. While this amount was small, Frank recognized it as what Florence called confirmation that money was beginning to flow toward him from unexpected sources. He felt encouraged by this sign, even though his logical mind questioned whether it meant anything significant. During this same week, Frank encountered his former principal, Mr. Rodriguez, at the grocery store and learned that several private schools in the area were actively seeking experienced mathematics teachers for the upcoming academic year. Mr. Rodriguez offered to provide references and suggested specific schools that Frank should contact immediately. This conversation felt like what Florence called divine arrangement rather than random coincidence. In the third week, Frank experienced what Florence would have recognized as macro signs, indicating that his manifestation was approaching completion. One of the private schools Mr. Rodriguez had mentioned called Frank for an interview after reviewing his credentials and references. The school offered a position teaching advanced mathematics with a salary of $34,000 per year, plus health benefits. On the same day Frank received the job offer, he was contacted by a community college that needed an adjunct instructor for evening mathematics classes. This opportunity offered an additional $800 per month for 6 hours of teaching per week. Frank realized that combining both positions would provide him with more income than he had earned as a public school teacher while reducing his total working hours. Frank also discovered that 3 more families in his neighborhood were interested in private tutoring services and were willing to pay premium rates for his expertise and experience. Within 1 month of beginning Florence's practice of decreeing his right employment while watching for signs, Frank had created multiple income streams that provided both financial security and professional satisfaction. Frank learned that the signs had been accurate predictors of his breakthrough because they reflected changes that were happening first in consciousness and then in circumstances. The internal shifts he experienced in the first week had been preparing him to recognize and attract the opportunities that appeared in subsequent weeks. Frank realized that the signs were not separate from the manifestation, but were part of the same process. The micro-signs Frank experienced included his improved sleep, increased optimism, and changed attitude toward job searching, all of which indicated that his consciousness was shifting from fear and limitation to confidence and possibility. These internal changes were necessary prerequisites for attracting and recognizing external opportunities that matched his new mental state. The medium signs Frank experienced included the overheard conversation about tutoring the insurance refund and the chance encounter with his former principal, all of which were small external confirmations that new patterns were forming in his experience. These signs provided encouragement and direction, while his major breakthrough was still developing. The macro signs Frank experienced included the job offers and additional opportunities that represented the full manifestation of his decree for perfect right employment. Frank understood that these opportunities had appeared because his consciousness had been prepared through the process indicated by the earlier signs. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this progression of signs was reliable and universal because it reflected the operation of spiritual law rather than random chance. She explained that consciousness created experience through definite stages, and that learning to recognize these stages allowed people to maintain faith and take appropriate action at the perfect timing. The 3 levels of signs Florence identified were all present in Frank's experience and demonstrated how the invisible realm communicated with the visible realm through symbolic language that could be understood by anyone who learned to pay attention. Frank realized that signs were always present, but that he had never noticed them before because he had not understood their significance. Florence taught that all 3 levels of signs were already happening for every person, but that most people missed them because they were looking for different kinds of evidence or were too focused on problems to notice the solutions that were developing. She instructed her students to watch for internal shifts, small confirmations, and obvious breakthroughs as indicators that their consciousness was aligned with their desired outcomes. While you rest tonight, the signs of your financial breakthrough are already being prepared. And not in the future, but now in the invisible plane, where everything that will manifest already exists in potential form. Your subconscious mind is already beginning to notice and attract the opportunities that will become obvious in your waking experience when divine timing brings them into visibility. You do not need to look for signs or try to interpret their meaning, because when your consciousness is properly aligned, the signs will be unmistakable and their significance will be clear. Continue resting and allowing your awareness to expand so that you can recognize the communications that are constantly flowing from the invisible source of all good into your conscious experience. The signs are already appearing in your life right now, and perhaps you have not noticed them yet because your attention has been focused elsewhere. But as your consciousness aligns more completely with prosperity and abundance, you will begin to see the evidence that your financial transformation is already in progress and approaching completion. The understanding of divine timing in relation to financial manifestation was one of Florence Scovel Shinn's most sophisticated teachings because it required distinguishing between human impatience and spiritual readiness, between forcing outcomes and allowing natural unfoldment, between chronological time and eternal time, where all good already exists in perfect completion, waiting for consciousness to align with its reception. Florence discovered that most financial frustration came not from lack of supply, but from misunderstanding the timing through which supply manifested in human experience. She observed that people would make correct spiritual declarations and then become discouraged when immediate external changes did not appear, not realizing that invisible preparation was necessary before visible manifestation could occur safely and sustainably. She taught that divine timing was not arbitrary delay, but perfect coordination between inner readiness and outer opportunity, and that this coordination required what she called patient faith rather than anxious waiting. Florence explained that the same intelligence that knew how to grow an oak tree from an acorn also knew the perfect timing for financial breakthroughs, and that trusting this intelligence was more effective than trying to force premature results. The concept of 48 hours that appeared frequently in Florence's teachings was not meant as a rigid timeline, but as a symbol of the rapid transformation that was possible when consciousness and divine intelligence were properly aligned. She explained that some manifestations happened within hours, while others required weeks or months, depending on the complexity of the situation and the readiness of the person to receive and maintain the desired outcome. Florence taught that there was no time in the divine mind where all good already existed in perfect completion, and that what appeared as waiting from the human perspective was actually preparation and coordination that ensured manifestation would occur in the most beneficial way for all involved. She instructed her students to use apparent waiting periods for inner development rather than outer anxiety. The key to living comfortably within divine timing, Florence discovered, was understanding that the waiting period was not empty time, but gestation time, during which invisible forces were arranging circumstances, people, and opportunities to create the perfect context for manifestation. She compared this process to pregnancy, where the invisible development was more important than the visible growth, and where premature delivery would be harmful rather than helpful. Florence also taught that divine timing protected people from receiving more than their consciousness could handle, and that premature manifestation often led to loss or disappointment because the inner foundation was not yet strong enough to support the outer demonstration. She observed that people who forced manifestation through willpower alone often lost what they gained because they had not developed the consciousness necessary to maintain their success. The practical instruction Florence gave for working harmoniously with divine timing was to continue normal daily activities while maintaining inner certainty about the eventual outcome rather than putting life on hold while waiting for manifestation. She taught that this balance of action and patience demonstrated the faith that attracted divine support and accelerated the manifestation process. Judith was 54 years old and worked as a freelance graphic designer in Portland, Oregon, when a series of unexpected circumstances created an urgent financial crisis that threatened her ability to keep her home and maintain her small business. Judith had built a successful design practice over 15 years, but the economic recession had reduced demand for her services, and several major clients had delayed payments, leaving her unable to cover her mortgage, utilities, and business expenses. Judith's monthly mortgage payment was $1,423, and she was already 3 months behind, with total arrears of $4,269 plus late fees and penalties. The bank had sent a foreclosure notice, giving her 30 days to bring the account current or face legal proceedings that would result in losing the home where she had lived for 12 years and built her business. The financial pressure was crushing and immediate. Judith calculated that she needed exactly $6,800 within 24 days to stop the foreclosure process and an additional $2,000 to cover overdue utility bills and business expenses. Her remaining savings totaled only $873, and no new client work was scheduled until the following month. Judith had been studying metaphysical principles, including Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, for several years, but had never faced such an urgent financial crisis that required rapid manifestation. Everything she had learned about prosperity consciousness would now be tested under extreme pressure, with concrete deadlines and specific amounts required. Judith felt overwhelmed by the gap between her spiritual understanding and her practical circumstances. Despite her fear, Judith decided to apply Florence's teachings about divine timing and perfect supply with complete commitment rather than panic and desperation. She began each day by declaring, "The exact amount I need comes to me at the perfect time through perfect channels, and I trust divine intelligence to coordinate all circumstances for my highest good." Judith spoke these words with all the faith she could summon, while her logical mind calculated worst-case scenarios. Judith knew that Florence taught patience as an essential component of manifestation, but with only 24 days remaining, patience felt like a luxury she could not afford. Judith struggled with the balance between spiritual surrender and practical action, between trusting divine timing and taking every possible step to generate income. She applied for emergency assistance programs, contacted all former clients about expedited payments, and explored options for part-time employment. During the first week, Judith's emotions fluctuated between hope and despair as she practiced Florence's principles while watching the calendar countdown toward her foreclosure deadline. Some days she felt confident that divine supply would appear in time, and other days she felt foolish for trusting invisible forces when concrete action seemed more practical. Judith learned that maintaining faith under pressure required constant choice and recommitment. Judith began to experience what Florence called the dark night of the soul, when external circumstances appeared to worsen before improvement began. 2 potential clients postponed their projects indefinitely, and a past due payment she had expected was delayed another month. Judith felt as if the universe was testing her commitment to spiritual principles versus practical resignation, and she wavered between continuing the practice and accepting defeat. On the 10th day, when Judith was feeling particularly discouraged and tempted to stop declaring and start panicking, she received an unexpected phone call from a client she had worked with 3 years earlier. The client's company was launching a major marketing campaign and needed immediate design work with a deadline that required intensive effort over 2 weeks. The project fee was $4,000 with half paid upon signing the contract. Judith accepted the project immediately and received the $2,000 advance payment the next day, but she still needed additional funds to meet her foreclosure deadline. Judith continued declaring divine supply while working intensively on the design project and maintaining faith that the remaining amount would appear through other channels. She had learned that partial manifestation often preceded complete manifestation as consciousness expanded to receive greater good. During the second week while Judith was working on the design project, she received another unexpected call from a homeowner who had seen some of her work and wanted to hire her to create marketing materials for a house sale. The homeowner was desperate to sell quickly due to a job relocation and offered Judith $1,500 for a complete package of brochures, advertisements, and signage completed within 1 week. Judith realized that divine intelligence was providing exactly what she needed through multiple channels rather than one large amount, and that the timing was coordinated perfectly with her ability to complete the work required. She accepted the second project and began working 18-hour days to meet both deadlines while maintaining her daily practice of declaring divine supply and perfect timing. On the 18th day, with 6 days remaining before her foreclosure deadline, Judith received notification that a former client had finally processed payment for a project completed 4 months earlier. The check for $2,300 had been delayed due to internal accounting changes, but arrived exactly when Judith needed it most. Combined with her other recent income, Judith now had enough money to stop the foreclosure and cover her overdue expenses. Judith made the payment to her mortgage company on the 20th day, with 4 days to spare, and realized that divine timing had been perfect, even though it had felt impossibly close from her human perspective. She understood that the coordination of multiple income sources with her specific deadline could not have been accomplished through her personal effort alone, but required the invisible intelligence that Florence called divine mind. The experience taught Judith that divine timing operated according to principles beyond human understanding, and that what appeared as cutting it close was actually precise coordination that built faith while providing exactly what was needed. Judith learned that premature manifestation might have reduced the intensity of faith and gratitude that made her transformation meaningful and permanent. Judith also realized that the waiting period had not been empty time, but preparation time during which her consciousness expanded to accommodate larger amounts of prosperity and her skills developed to attract higher-paying projects. The crisis had forced her to grow spiritually and professionally in ways that would benefit her long-term financial stability and success. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this kind of experience demonstrated divine timing at its most precise because it required trust beyond logical calculation and faith beyond physical evidence. She explained that when timing appeared to be cutting close, it was actually building the spiritual muscle that would support even greater manifestations in the future. The period between decreeing and receiving, Florence taught, was not waiting time, but preparation time, during which consciousness aligned more completely with the desired outcome and circumstances arranged themselves for perfect manifestation. She compared this process to the way a seed remained invisible underground while developing the root system necessary to support the eventual plant. Florence instructed her students to use apparent delay as opportunity for inner development rather than outer anxiety, because the person who received the manifestation needed to be ready to maintain and multiply what they received. She taught that divine intelligence coordinated timing not only for immediate relief, but for long-term prosperity and spiritual growth. The 48-hour period that appeared in many of Florence's teachings represented not a guarantee of timing, but a symbol of the rapid transformation possible when consciousness and divine law were perfectly aligned. She explained that some manifestations happened within hours, while others required longer preparation, but that all manifestation happened according to perfect timing that considered factors beyond human perception. While you sleep tonight, divine timing is operating in your financial situation, coordinating circumstances, people, and opportunities to create the perfect context for your breakthrough. You do not need to understand how this coordination happens or when it will be complete, because divine intelligence operates beyond human comprehension and always manifests at the perfect moment for your highest good. Continue resting in faith that your needs are known and your supply is being prepared, and that when the timing is perfect, everything you need will appear through channels you may not expect, but will recognize as divinely arranged. Your money blocks are dissolving according to divine timing, which is always perfect even when it does not match human expectations about how quickly change should occur. The power of collective witness and the invisible field of shared prosperity consciousness represents one of Florence Scovel Shinn's most advanced teachings about how individual manifestation is supported and amplified by connection to the larger field of human consciousness that is focused on abundance and divine supply. She discovered that when people joined together in acknowledging the same spiritual truth, their combined consciousness created what she called an invisible magnet that attracted manifestation more powerfully than individual effort alone. Florence observed that the ancient practice of gathering witnesses for important declarations had deep spiritual significance because it activated what she called the law of collective agreement, where multiple souls focused on the same truth created exponential rather than additive power for manifestation. She taught that this principle explained why prayer circles and spiritual communities often experienced more dramatic breakthroughs than individuals working in isolation. The concept of invisible witnesses that Florence developed came from her understanding that consciousness was not limited by physical presence, and that people could call upon the spiritual presence of others who shared their vision of abundance and prosperity. She taught that every person who had ever succeeded in demonstrating divine supply became part of an eternal field of prosperity consciousness that could be accessed by anyone who aligned their thinking with the same principles. Florence discovered that when someone made a decree about prosperity, they were never actually alone because they were automatically connected to everyone else who had ever made similar declarations with sincere faith and commitment. This connection created what she called a spiritual network that supported individual manifestation through the combined faith and experience of countless others who had successfully demonstrated the same principles. The practical application of this understanding involved what Florence called conscious connection to the field of prosperity through specific techniques that acknowledged the presence and support of others who were working with the same spiritual laws. She taught that recognizing this connection strengthened individual faith while contributing to the collective consciousness that made manifestation easier for everyone involved. Florence also taught that when someone successfully demonstrated prosperity through spiritual principles, their success created what she called vibrational pathways that made similar demonstrations easier for others to achieve. She explained that each successful manifestation strengthened the field of possibility for everyone, and that this was why spiritual communities often experienced waves of breakthrough where multiple people manifested similar outcomes within short time periods. The responsibility that came with understanding collective prosperity consciousness, Florence taught, was the recognition that individual success was not separate from collective success, and that helping others strengthen their prosperity consciousness actually enhanced, rather than diminished one's own manifestation power. She taught that the universe operated on principles of abundance rather than scarcity, and that sharing knowledge and resources created expansion for everyone. The specific technique Florence taught for connecting to collective prosperity consciousness involved declaring one's intention while consciously inviting the witness and support of all souls who were aligned with the same spiritual truth. This practice activated what she called the field of agreement that amplified individual declaration through collective faith and commitment. Raymond was 65 years old and owned a small furniture repair business in Detroit, Michigan that had been struggling to survive the economic changes that were transforming manufacturing in the Great Lakes region. Raymond had built his business over 38 years, developing a reputation for exceptional craftsmanship and honest dealing. But changing consumer preferences and competition from large retailers had reduced demand for furniture repair services dramatically. Raymond's monthly business expenses, including rent, utilities, insurance, and materials, totaled $2,300, but his income had decreased to an average of $1,400 per month over the past year. Raymond had depleted his savings, trying to keep the business operational, and was facing the possibility of closing permanently and losing the workshop where he had spent most of his adult life creating and restoring beautiful furniture. The emotional impact of potentially losing his business was profound because Raymond's identity was deeply connected to his craftsmanship and his role in preserving quality furniture that might otherwise be discarded. Raymond felt that his skills and knowledge represented something valuable that was being lost in a culture that increasingly valued convenience over quality and replacement over repair. Raymond had never considered himself particularly spiritual, but desperation led him to explore options beyond conventional business strategies. His daughter Carol had been studying metaphysical principles and suggested that Raymond might benefit from learning about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings on prosperity consciousness and the power of spiritual community to support individual breakthroughs. Carol explained that Florence taught about collective witness and shared consciousness in ways that did not require specific religious beliefs, but drew upon universal spiritual principles that worked regardless of someone's background or previous experience with metaphysical ideas. Raymond was skeptical, but agreed to try Florence's approach because conventional methods had not produced the results he needed to save his business. Raymond learned that Florence taught about calling upon invisible witnesses when making declarations about desired outcomes, and that these witnesses could include people who were still living as well as those who had passed on, but whose consciousness remained connected to the field of shared human experience. This concept felt strange to Raymond initially, but he was willing to experiment if it might help preserve his business. Raymond decided to apply Florence's teaching by consciously connecting to what she called the field of collective prosperity when making his daily declarations about business success. Each morning before opening his workshop, Raymond would stand quietly among his tools and finished pieces and speak these words: "I call upon all souls who understand the value of quality craftsmanship and sacred work to witness my declaration that this business prospers abundantly and serves the highest good of all." The practice felt awkward at first because Raymond was not accustomed to speaking aloud to invisible presences. But as he continued the daily routine, he began to sense what felt like supportive energy surrounding his declarations. Raymond noticed that his anxiety about the business began to decrease, and his confidence about finding solutions began to increase, even though external circumstances had not yet changed. During the second week of this practice, Raymond received an unexpected phone call from a woman named Mrs. Anderson who had heard about his work from a friend and wanted to discuss a large project involving restoration of antique furniture that had belonged to her deceased husband. Mrs. Anderson explained that her husband had been a furniture maker himself and had collected pieces that needed expert restoration by someone who understood both the technical requirements and the spiritual significance of preserving beautiful craftsmanship. Mrs. Anderson visited Raymond's workshop and immediately recognized his dedication to quality and authenticity in ways that connected to her husband's own values and standards. She commissioned Raymond to restore 12 pieces of antique furniture with a total value of $8,400 and mentioned that she knew other collectors who might be interested in similar services if Raymond's work met her expectations. During the third week while Raymond was working on Mrs. Anderson's furniture, he was contacted by a local interior designer who had been searching for someone capable of creating custom furniture pieces for clients who valued handcrafted quality over mass-produced alternatives. The designer offered Raymond a partnership arrangement that would provide steady work, creating original pieces for affluent customers who appreciated traditional craftsmanship. Raymond realized that both opportunities had appeared through people who shared his appreciation for quality craftsmanship and dedication to preserving traditional skills. Mrs. Anderson's connection to her husband's love of furniture making and the interior designer's commitment to handcrafted quality suggested that Raymond's daily practice of calling upon collective witness was connecting him to others who resonated with the same values and vision. In the fourth week, Raymond received another unexpected connection when a local woodworking instructor contacted him about teaching classes in furniture repair and restoration. The instructor had been looking for someone with Raymond's combination of technical expertise and passion for traditional methods to share knowledge with younger craftspeople who wanted to learn these increasingly rare skills. The teaching opportunity offered both additional income and deep satisfaction, as Raymond realized that sharing his knowledge would help ensure that traditional furniture making and repair skills would continue to be available for future generations. Raymond understood that his business crisis had led him to discover not only new sources of income, but a larger purpose that connected his individual work to collective preservation of valuable knowledge and skills. Within 6 weeks, Raymond's monthly income had increased from $1,400 to over $4,000 through the combination of restoration projects, custom furniture creation, and teaching contracts. More importantly, Raymond felt reconnected to a sense of purpose and community that had been missing during his period of struggle and isolation. Raymond realized that Florence's teaching about collective witness had worked by connecting him to others who shared his values and vision, rather than trying to force success through individual effort alone. The people who had become his clients and partners were naturally drawn to quality craftsmanship and traditional skills, which meant that their business relationships were based on mutual appreciation rather than mere convenience. The concept of collective consciousness that Florence taught became real for Raymond as he experienced how his daily practice of invoking witness and support had somehow attracted people who were aligned with the same principles and values that guided his work. Raymond understood that this was not coincidence, but evidence of invisible connections that operated beyond ordinary understanding. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that this kind of experience demonstrated how individual prosperity was always supported by collective consciousness when someone aligned their personal goals with principles that served the greater good. She explained that business success based on spiritual principles was more sustainable than success based on competition or manipulation because it created value for everyone involved. The field of collective prosperity that Florence identified operates continuously around every person, but most people are not consciously connected to this field because they focus on individual effort rather than spiritual community. She taught that recognizing and activating this connection multiplied manifestation power while contributing to the success and prosperity of others who were working with the same principles. The invisible network of prosperous souls that Florence taught about includes everyone who has ever successfully demonstrated abundance through spiritual principles. And this network is available to support anyone who approaches prosperity, consciousness, with sincere commitment and desire to serve the highest good. Raymond's experience demonstrated how connection to this network attracted opportunities that were perfectly matched to his skills and values. While you rest tonight, you are being sustained and supported by the collective field of thousands of souls around the world who are working with the same principles of prosperity consciousness that you are receiving now. You are not alone in your financial transformation because you are part of an eternal community of souls who understand that abundance is everyone's birthright and that individual success contributes to collective prosperity. Continue resting in the awareness that your prosperity is supported by the combined faith, love, and commitment of countless others who have walked this path before you and who continue to walk alongside you now. Your money blocks are dissolving not only through your individual consciousness, but through the collective power of shared spiritual truth that operates beyond individual limitation. You can feel this support even as you sleep, because collective consciousness operates beyond physical presence and connects all souls who are aligned with the same spiritual principles. Your breakthrough is supported by the field, and your breakthrough supports the field, creating an eternal cycle of giving and receiving that ensures prosperity for everyone who participates in spiritual community. The journey we have traveled together through these hours of deep teaching represents more than intellectual understanding or emotional inspiration, but a fundamental reorganization of your consciousness around the eternal principles that govern prosperity and abundance in human experience. You have heard about the power of word as decree, and how every syllable spoken with conviction and feeling creates invisible waves that reorganize reality according to the pattern contained within that sound and intention. You have discovered the truth that identity precedes manifestation, and that the person you understand yourself to be in the depths of your consciousness becomes the creative force that attracts circumstances, people, and opportunities that match that inner sense of self. You have learned that changing identity is more powerful than changing strategy, because identity creates the field within which all strategy operates and determines what becomes possible or impossible in your experience. You have explored the nature of resistance and surrender around money, and discovered that resistance is not an enemy to be conquered, but a teacher pointing toward the specific beliefs and attachments that need to be released in order for greater good to flow freely into your life. You have learned that surrender is not passive acceptance of limitation, but active alignment with divine intelligence that knows the perfect timing method and amount of supply for your highest development and greatest service. You have developed the ability to recognize signs and synchronicities that indicate your financial breakthrough is developing in the invisible realm before manifesting in the visible world. And you understand that these signs are not coincidence, but correspondence, revealing the activity of spiritual law operating on your behalf. You have learned to read the language through which the universe communicates preparation, coordination, and manifestation. You have gained understanding of divine timing that protects you from receiving more than your consciousness can handle, while ensuring that everything you need appears at the exact moment when you are ready to receive, maintain, and multiply what is given. You have learned that apparent delay is actually preparation time, during which invisible forces arrange all circumstances for perfect manifestation, according to wisdom beyond human comprehension. You have discovered your connection to the collective field of prosperity consciousness that includes everyone who has ever successfully demonstrated abundance through spiritual principles, and you understand that your individual success is supported by this invisible community, while your breakthrough contributes to making manifestation easier for others who are working with the same eternal laws. All of these teachings have been working in your consciousness throughout these hours of rest and instruction, creating new patterns of thought, feeling, and expectation that will continue manifesting as corresponding experiences in your daily life. Your subconscious mind has been absorbing and integrating spiritual truth that will reorganize your relationship with money from the foundation upward, ensuring that your transformation is complete and permanent. But there is one more story that seals everything you have received tonight, and this story contains the essence of all the principles we have explored together, compressed into a single experience that demonstrates how quickly and completely consciousness can shift when someone surrenders completely to the operation of spiritual law in their life. This is the story that will anchor everything you have learned in the deepest levels of your being. Her name was Sharon, and she was 56 years old when everything she thought she knew about money security and survival was challenged by circumstances that seemed to offer no hope and no solution through ordinary means. Sharon lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in Sacramento, California, with her elderly mother, Rose, who was 81 years old and required constant care due to advancing dementia that made independent living impossible. Sharon had been her mother's primary caregiver for 4 years, since Rose could no longer manage basic daily activities safely, and Sharon's two siblings lived in other states and contributed financially when possible, but could not provide the hands-on care that Rose needed every day. Sharon had left her career as a legal secretary to care for her mother full-time, which meant living on Rose's Social Security payments and small pension totaling $1,600 per month. The house where Sharon and Rose lived had been in their family for 32 years, but was now facing foreclosure because Sharon had been unable to maintain the mortgage payments, which were $1,278 monthly. Sharon had fallen behind by 5 months, owing a total of $6,390 in past due payments, plus penalties and legal fees that increased the total amount needed to $8,742. The foreclosure notice gave Sharon exactly 14 days to bring the mortgage current or face eviction, which would leave both Sharon and her mother homeless with no resources to secure alternative housing that could accommodate Rose's special needs. Sharon felt trapped between impossible choices because she could not leave her mother to return to work, but could not maintain their home without income beyond the Social Security payments. Sharon's desperation was compounded by medical debt that had accumulated from Rose's frequent doctor visits, emergency room trips, and prescription medications that were not fully covered by Medicare. The total medical debt was $4,563, and collection agencies called daily threatening legal action if payments were not arranged immediately. Sharon felt overwhelmed by financial pressures that seemed impossible to resolve. The stress was affecting Sharon's health and emotional stability as she struggled with chronic insomnia, anxiety attacks, and depression that made caring for her mother even more challenging. Sharon had lost 23 pounds over 6 months due to poor appetite and constant worry, and she often found herself crying unexpectedly while performing routine tasks like preparing meals or helping her mother bathe. Rose's condition was deteriorating, which meant that Sharon's caregiving responsibilities were increasing, while her ability to generate income remained completely limited. Rose required assistance with eating, bathing, dressing, and using the bathroom, and she often became confused and agitated, especially in the evenings, which meant that Sharon could never relax completely or sleep through the night without interruption. Sharon had applied for every form of assistance available, including Medicaid disability benefits, emergency housing aid, and caregiver support services. But bureaucratic delays meant that help, if it came at all, would not arrive in time to prevent the foreclosure. Sharon felt abandoned by systems that seemed designed to help people in her situation, but operated too slowly to address urgent crises. On a Tuesday morning, 8 days before the foreclosure deadline, when Sharon was feeling completely hopeless and considering surrender, she discovered a video about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings on removing money blocks through prayer and faith. Sharon had been raised in a Christian household, but had not practiced religion actively for many years. However, desperation made her willing to try spiritual approaches she might have dismissed under other circumstances. The video explained that money blocks were not real barriers, but false beliefs that could be dissolved through understanding spiritual law, and that the most powerful transformations often occurred when people had exhausted all human options and were forced to rely completely on divine intelligence. Sharon felt as though the teaching was speaking directly to her situation and offering hope when no human solution appeared possible. Sharon learned that Florence taught about complete surrender, which meant releasing all attachment to how help would appear and trusting that divine intelligence would provide perfect solutions through channels that human thinking could never anticipate. This surrender was not passive resignation, but active faith that acknowledged forces beyond personal understanding, operating on behalf of everyone who aligned their consciousness with spiritual truth. Sharon decided to commit completely to Florence's approach because she had nothing left to lose and no other options remained available. She began practicing what Florence called the prayer for removing all money blocks, which involved acknowledging divine supply as the source of all good and declaring that every obstacle to financial flow was dissolved through the power of spiritual truth operating in her life. Every morning for 7 consecutive days, Sharon would wake before dawn and sit quietly in her kitchen while her mother still slept and speak these words with all the faith and feeling she could generate. All money blocks are now removed from my consciousness, and I am supplied abundantly by infinite intelligence that provides everything I need at the perfect time through perfect channels. I surrender all concern about how this happens and trust completely in divine love and wisdom. Sharon also practiced what Florence called living from the end, which meant acting and feeling as though the solution had already been provided, even while external circumstances showed no evidence of change. Sharon spoke to her mother about future plans as though they would definitely remain in their home, and she stopped checking the mail anxiously for foreclosure updates because she trusted that divine intelligence was handling everything perfectly. On the fourth day of Sharon's prayer practice, she received an unexpected phone call from an attorney representing her deceased father's estate, explaining that an insurance policy had been discovered that no one in the family had known existed. The policy had been paying into an account that had accumulated over 15 years and now contained $12,894 that belonged to Sharon and her siblings as beneficiaries. The attorney explained that Sharon's portion of the inheritance was $4,298, which would be available within 48 hours once the required paperwork was completed. While this amount would not solve all of Sharon's financial problems, it would allow her to bring the mortgage current and avoid immediate foreclosure while she worked on longer-term solutions. On the sixth day, Sharon received another unexpected call from the county social services office, explaining that her application for emergency caregiver assistance had been approved, and she would receive $700 per month retroactive for 3 months, plus ongoing payments for up to 2 years while caring for her mother. The caseworker also explained that Rose qualified for additional medical coverage that would eliminate most of the outstanding medical debt. On the seventh day, the day before Sharon's prayer week was scheduled to end, she was contacted by a local organization that provided support for family caregivers and learned about a program that offered part-time employment opportunities specifically designed for people caring for elderly relatives. The work involved telephone counseling and administrative tasks that could be done from home during flexible hours while Rose rested. The employment opportunity offered income of approximately $1,000 per month, which combined with the caregiver assistance payments and Rose's Social Security would provide adequate financial stability to maintain their housing and cover all necessary expenses. Sharon realized that every aspect of her financial crisis was being resolved through solutions she could never have anticipated or arranged through her own efforts. Within 10 days of beginning Florence's practice of surrendering money blocks through prayer and faith, Sharon's entire situation had transformed from impossible desperation to stable security through a series of events that felt miraculous in their timing and coordination. The inheritance, the assistance approvals, and the employment opportunity had all appeared exactly when needed to prevent disaster and create sustainable solutions. Sharon understood that the transformation had begun not when external circumstances changed, but when she had surrendered completely to spiritual law and stopped trying to control outcomes through worry and effort. The prayer for removing money blocks had worked by dissolving her resistance to receiving help and opening her consciousness to possibilities that had always existed but were invisible to her limited human perspective. The experience taught Sharon that divine intelligence operated through natural channels and logical sequences, but coordinated timing and circumstances in ways that revealed supernatural wisdom and compassion. The solutions that appeared were practical and sustainable, but their simultaneous manifestation at the exact moment of greatest need demonstrated spiritual law operating beyond coincidence or chance. Sharon continued practicing Florence's principles and found that her financial stability strengthened over time as her consciousness remained aligned with spiritual truth rather than human limitation. She often shared her story with other caregivers facing similar challenges because she understood that testimonies of spiritual demonstration encouraged others to trust the same principles that had saved her family from disaster. This story demonstrates every principle we have explored together compressed into one complete experience that shows how spiritual law operates when human resources are exhausted and complete surrender becomes the only remaining option. Sharon's transformation illustrates the power of word as decree, the principle of identity change, the necessity of surrendering resistance. the recognition of signs, the trust in divine timing, and the support of collective consciousness, all working together to create what appeared to be miraculous rescue. You will receive the same level of transformation because the spiritual laws that operated in Sharon's experience are universal principles that work for everyone who applies them with sincere faith and complete commitment. Your money blocks are already dissolving as you rest and receive these teachings because the same divine intelligence that coordinated Sharon's breakthrough is operating in your situation right now, preparing solutions that will appear at the perfect time. The seal that Sharon received through her 7 days of prayer and surrender is now being transferred to you as you prepare to receive the final decree that will complete your own transformation. Everything you have heard tonight has been preparation for this moment when spiritual truth becomes personal reality, and your consciousness aligns completely with the abundance that has always been your birthright. Even if you are sleeping, something eternal within you is completely awake and alert, and this aspect of your being never rests, never doubts, never questions the operation of spiritual law in your life. This eternal part of you hears every word I speak now with perfect understanding and complete acceptance, because it recognizes spiritual truth immediately without need for explanation or proof or evidence from the external world. This part of you that never sleeps is your divine nature, your connection to infinite intelligence, your access to unlimited supply, your identity as a spiritual being temporarily clothed in human form, but never limited by human circumstances or conditions. This part of you knows that you are abundantly supplied because you are part of the abundance that creates and sustains all life in the universe. Breathe deeply with me now, even if your physical body is at rest, because your eternal nature responds to spiritual direction and divine command regardless of the state of your conscious mind. Breathe in the recognition that you are naturally prosperous because prosperity is the nature of divine intelligence expressing itself through your individual consciousness and experience. Breathe out all resistance to receiving the good that is constantly flowing toward you from the infinite source of all supply. Breathe out all false beliefs about your worthiness or your limitations or your separation from the abundance that is your spiritual birthright. Breathe out all attachment to struggle and limitation as forms of identity or spiritual practice. Breathe in the truth that divine intelligence knows your every need before you ask and has already prepared perfect provision for everything required for your highest development and greatest service. Breathe in the understanding that your supply comes not from human sources, but from the infinite creativity of divine mind operating through human channels that are prepared specifically for your unique circumstances. Breathe out all concern about timing or method or specific sources, because divine intelligence operates beyond human understanding and arranges all circumstances according to wisdom that considers factors you could never perceive or comprehend. Breathe out all need to control or direct or manipulate the process of manifestation, because surrender allows divine power to work more efficiently than human effort ever could. Now we come to the moment of sealing, when everything you have received tonight becomes permanently established in your consciousness through the power of spoken decree that activates spiritual law and sets invisible forces in motion that cannot be stopped, reversed, or interfered with by any human condition or circumstance. The words I am about to speak are not my words, but eternal words that have been spoken by every soul who has ever successfully demonstrated prosperity through spiritual understanding. These words carry the accumulated power of everyone who has ever moved from limitation to abundance through recognizing their divine nature and their connection to infinite supply. You do not need to repeat these words or remember these words or understand these words, because they are being spoken not to your human mind, but to your eternal consciousness, which receives them as commands from the divine authority that operates all manifestation in the universe. These words are being established in the deepest levels of your being, where they will continue working until they manifest as corresponding experiences in your daily life. First wave, spoken gently as pure truth. It is finished. All money blocks that have ever existed in your consciousness are now completely dissolved and can never return, because they were never real, but only false beliefs that have been replaced by spiritual understanding. It is done. Your consciousness is now permanently aligned with the infinite source of all supply, and this alignment cannot be disturbed by external circumstances or internal doubt. And it cannot be otherwise because spiritual law operates with absolute consistency, and what is established in consciousness must manifest as experience. Second wave spoken with normal authority as demonstrated fact. It is finished. Every obstacle between you and perfect financial flow has been removed through the operation of divine intelligence that recognizes no barriers and accepts no limitations to the expression of infinite abundance. It is done. Your subconscious mind is now programmed for prosperity and success, and automatically attracts opportunities, people, and circumstances that support your financial well-being and expansion. And it cannot be otherwise because consciousness creates experience, and your consciousness is now aligned with spiritual truth about abundance. Third wave spoken with full decree power as universal law. It is finished. You are now and have always been a perfect channel for divine prosperity, and every day of your life will demonstrate increasing evidence of this truth operating through your thoughts, words, actions, and experiences. It is done. The universe now responds to you as someone who is naturally supplied and abundantly blessed, and this response will continue manifesting in ways that exceed your current ability to imagine or comprehend. And it cannot be otherwise because you are now operating from your true spiritual identity rather than from false human limitations. The word seal is complete, but there is more to receive because your prosperity consciousness requires not only the removal of blocks, but the establishment of positive identity that will maintain and multiply the good that is now flowing freely into your experience. First wave of identity decree spoken as gentle recognition. I am a natural receiver of infinite abundance because receiving is the spiritual service that allows divine intelligence to express itself through human consciousness and experience. I have always received everything I needed because I am connected to the source that never lacks and never fails and never withholds good from those who recognize their divine nature. And it cannot be otherwise because spiritual law operates through identity. And my identity is now aligned with spiritual truth about my nature and my relationship to infinite supply. Second wave of identity decree spoken as established reality. I am a natural receiver of infinite abundance, and every day brings new evidence of this truth, manifesting through opportunities that appear effortlessly, circumstances that arrange themselves perfectly, and people who are drawn to support my success and prosperity. I have always received everything I needed, and now I receive even more because my consciousness has expanded to accommodate greater good. And it cannot be otherwise because the universe responds to consciousness, and my consciousness now reflects the abundance that is my spiritual birthright. Third wave of identity decree, spoken as eternal truth. I am a natural receiver of infinite abundance, and this truth operates continuously in my life regardless of external appearances or temporary circumstances, because abundance is not dependent on conditions, but on consciousness, and my consciousness is permanently established in spiritual understanding. I have always received everything I needed, and will always receive everything I need, because I am part of the intelligence that creates and sustains all supply in the universe. And it cannot be otherwise, because I am now operating from divine identity rather than human limitation, and divine identity naturally attracts divine demonstration. And so, it is sealed in your consciousness tonight through the power of spiritual word, spoken with divine authority and received by your eternal nature, that recognizes truth immediately and begins manifesting corresponding experiences without delay or resistance or need for human effort or understanding. And so, it remains established in your subconscious mind, where it continues working while you sleep and while you wake, creating new neural pathways, dissolving old patterns, attracting perfect opportunities, and preparing the circumstances through which your financial breakthrough will manifest in the physical world. And so it cannot be otherwise, because what is established in consciousness through spiritual law must manifest as experience, and what has been sealed tonight through divine decree cannot be unsealed by human doubt or external circumstances or temporary appearances that may seem to contradict what has been established in the eternal realm. And so it is completed and confirmed and activated and released into manifestation through the operation of spiritual forces that work continuously on behalf of everyone who aligns their consciousness with eternal truth about prosperity and abundance as natural expressions of divine intelligence operating through human experience. You can continue resting now in complete peace and perfect confidence because everything that needed to happen has already happened in consciousness. And what happens in consciousness must eventually manifest in experience according to the timing that divine intelligence determines is perfect for your highest good and greatest blessing. Everything that needed to enter your consciousness has already been established and is now working continuously to create the financial transformation that will become obvious in your external experience when divine timing brings all elements together in perfect coordination and harmony. When you wake, you will be different, not because something has been added to you, but because something that was always true has been recognized and activated and aligned with your conscious awareness. You will be different, not because circumstances have changed, but because your relationship to circumstances has been transformed through spiritual understanding. You will be different because your identity around money has shifted from human limitation to divine abundance. And this shift in identity will continue manifesting as corresponding changes in your financial experience until your external life reflects the spiritual truth that has been established in your consciousness tonight. Rest now in the certainty that your money blocks are dissolved, your prosperity consciousness is activated, your divine identity is established, and your financial breakthrough is guaranteed by spiritual law that never fails and never delays, beyond the perfect timing determined by infinite wisdom operating on your behalf. Rest now because it is finished, and it is done, and it cannot be otherwise because spiritual truth has been spoken with divine authority and received by your eternal consciousness that knows how to manifest everything that has been decreed through the natural operation of universal law. It is finished. Rest now, your transformation is complete.